Nighttime. Trying to, been trying to heal my leg. My Killing Joke related leg injury that I got. And I've been using thought forms to do it. And I found that when you use thought forms, or as I call them, constructs, not in a magic way. I mean, I guess it is, but it's the kind of thing that we've discovered we can do as beings that we didn't previously realize we had the ability to do. And to do these things, usually you would have to involve yourself in a lot of magic, a lot of ritual. Well, not so much ritual for that point, but we can just do that stuff. And again, Veil Bro Scale Bro has everything to do with that. But I found that when I try to use thought forms, and what mainly that is that using your imagination to imagine a mechanic in the fourth dimensional sense to then have an impact on the 3D or whatever. It's not really the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is more travel dimension, but in the ether or whatever you want to call it, you imagine it. And it's imagination is the back end of reality, as I always say, using a computer term. So what you're doing basically is you're creating something in your mind that you are then willing into the ether to have an effect on you in the physical realm. It's, whatever you want to call it. And I found within experimentation over the past couple of years that it can be successful minimally as far as my success goes. A lot of others have been way more successful at it. Regan Kelly over at what is it called? Oh my God. What's the name of her channel? Transforming the Darkness. A friend of mine. Although I don't know if she would want people to know she associates with me, but she explains things really well as far as doing this kind of thing. And in particular, she had a healing video, I think it was called Heart Healing, where she explains how to do this, how to imagine a mechanic or an idea or a concept in your mind that will then have a bearing on you here. So what I've been doing as far as thought forms for my leg, and I like to do things by color. I set up a thing. It doesn't matter what color you choose for these things. I choose for defense and protection is blue. The discomfort or whatever I'm trying to get rid of is red. Healing is green, and when you want to draw something to you or bring something to you or attract something, that's yellow. And it was my wife who came up with yellow because she didn't come up with that. She was trying to pull me at one point one night, and I could see it, and it was yellow. So that's why I made that yellow, or I've assign yellow to that. And you can see this sometimes, but you see it between thought and eyesight. It's like a sixth kind of sense that, I mean, you don't see it with your eyes. You don't see it in a way, you just see it. I can't explain it. If you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. So as I'm walking, my leg healed a couple weeks ago. It's been going on for a few months. The origin of which was sort of a gang stalking incident. I talk a little bit about it, but I explain I give a basic rundown of it in a video I did a couple months ago. I don't know what the whole title is, but I know some of the title is Filthy Howlies, which is slang here in Hawaii for, well, it's become slang for white people, but that's not what it means. It's supposed to mean without breath, without spirit. And when Hawaiians would greet each other, they would get close together and share breath. They'd share each other's breath. Aloha. But foreigners or outsiders were called haole because they're without spirit, without breath. But over the years, it's been dumbed down to just mean white people. But I also call white people haoles. So this all stemmed from an altercation I had that I think was tied to gang stalking with this gang of white kids. So I call them Filthy Howlies in the video, and in there explains a little bit how the injury happened, and it's also very Killing Joke related. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I just have to say things. I feel like I was not possessed, but I mean, I don't know what you would call it, inspired. Yeah, I'll get into that whole other thing at some other point. But in any case, I hurt my leg. What I was trying to do is jump a fence. I was going into a yard in a bloodthirsty rage, which is retarded, right? Because I'm so old. But I was possessed, man. So I think the last time I took a running jump over a fence, you run, you put your arms up on the top, and you throw yourself over, as I just almost fell over. But this time I went to go over the top, and I ended up, it caught my leg. So I fucked my leg up. Long story fucking longer. It healed, and then recently I kind of hurt it again by mistake. I just kind of stepped off a curb weird. So I've been trying to heal it again. So what I'm doing basically is trying to do thought forms, constructs. I imagine a kind of brace on my leg or some kind of contraption that has the green juice in it that is centered around my knee, and I kind of concentrate on that. I use thought forms to get home the other night because the way it's been going is I'll go out for a walk, and then at a certain point the pain becomes unbearable and I can no longer move. So each day I go a little bit further. And then one day, like last week, I was up the street from my house, and I was sending a text to someone, and when I was done, I was standing in place. I went to take a step to start walking away, but like my body, my brain, I guess, started telling me, no, you can't use that leg. And I'm like, what? And it's like, no, you don't step. That leg, you can't put weight on it. So I was having this debate with myself. Like, well, how the fuck am I going to go? Am I stuck in this spot? What am I going to do? So I imagined the weight all going to my foot. And I devised some sort of Jack Kirby-esque contraption. Jack Kirby being a comic book artist who is famous for making all these really weird looking contraptions. And what it did is I was trying to take the weight off my knee, which is where the main part of the injury is, and shifting it to my foot, my heel, and where the front part of my foot is. And I imagined a big, like some kind of boot. I devised this whole thing. When you're doing thought forms, I feel, anyway, the more detailed you can make it, the more of a impact it has on the solid world, on the 3D, on the material. And what it was doing is, it started at the top of my thigh, some kind of machinery, and it had these struts that went down on my feet. So what it did is it took all the weight off the injured part and put it down to my foot. But I couldn't bend my foot. I just had to walk like this, like that. But on my foot was like this big flat thing, I imagine. And I got home like that. It works fine. Healing it, though, is becoming a problem just because I have a hard time when I'm trying to do something for myself. And I've noticed that pattern that when you try to use thought forms or constructs on yourself, it seems to be a lot harder when you try to send energy to others or pray for others or to help others or to heal others. I do this a lot with my wife. She comes home from work, her back's usually hurting her because she does a lot of moving around at her work. And I'll imagine in my mind, I'll use thought forms to make these contraptions in my mind. And it's not about it's not like you're making these things to appear here, that they're not going to. But what they do is they have an effect here in the way that it would work as if it was here, if that makes any sense. You imagine, it's just like imagining. And that's one thing that people miss out on a lot in these types of circles, is how important imagination is. And the farmers know how important it is too, because that's how they get us to build the world they want. Like in the case of some kind of sick illness or virus or something, previous to whatever they're doing, whatever, if you want to call it predictive programming or whatever, they fill your head with these ideas, these images. In the case of the virus thing, and I've said this a couple of times, you know, Hollywood's bombarded us with movies for 20 years with what happens when there's a virus, and they gotta zip up houses in plastic and all this stuff. It's all bullshit, but they put this all in your head so that when you hear on the news that there's a virus, you imagine all these things. Now, it's one thing to have someone imagining it, but if you can get a lot of people at 6 o'clock in the evening from the news to imagine something, then it's more likely it's going to create the mechanic in the ether that will then change reality. Because they can't create anything. They need us to create it for them. Evil cannot create. They have to trick us into doing it for them. We have to do it to ourselves. So they know how important it is. And they look for people when you're young who have this kind of imagination, who have artistic ability. You ever seen those ads in magazines that or newspapers? It'd be, can you draw this turtle? Well, if you follow up on where a lot of those things lead, they lead to some really dark programs. And I had something like that in my school. I've talked about it before, but I always say that, like, oh, I talked about it before I did a video. I have hundreds of videos. How the fuck are you supposed to find any of this stuff? It's just amazing. Don't want to go through it. But yeah, I was involved in some weird little thing at my school where I was, the art department was very interested in me, an art teacher in particular. I remember him taking me down to the basement. And for years, I thought it was it might have been some kind of abuse thing, some sexual abuse thing, because I had that in my life too. But I don't think it was. I think it was one of these weird programs, because as time goes on, and I've talked about this with other people or read other people's accounts of these type of programs where they got young kids and they try to see how good they are at imagining things. I remember my art teacher used to tell me, like, you know, I could do things like almost photographically from, if I'm looking at something, I'd be able to draw it perfectly. And his whole thing was, can you do this with something you imagine? And that was his whole thing. Like, if you can, instead of creating these Star Wars ships, can you create your own things? What they were trying to see is your imagination potential, your imagination power. Which is really weird, right? Until you begin to understand this. And then you're like, oh, they go looking for kids when they're young to do this kind of thing. It's not just a case of like, they want kids for the regular dark satanic purposes. They use kids for all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. And that's one of the things, But, so they know how important imagination is. Because it powers the reality. It powers, the whole engine of what we do. Of everything. So imagination is key. And in a much smaller scale, that's what thought forms are. The way they create and control society, you can do that for yourself on your own in a micro situation. In a micro machine situation. There used to be a guy I used to call around here, Johnny Micro Machines. He'd drive around in one of those little scooters. He didn't really need one. But he'd drive around and he had COPD and he'd be asking everybody for cigarettes all the time. I don't know why Johnny Micro Machines just popped into my head that he did. But yeah, that's how thought forms are. You'll find them using every kind of like magic. God, I really want to light. Oh, I got a lighter. It's a nice night out. I just like to be out here sometimes and see how my meter's working. There's a thing I call the nonsense meter, which is very relevant to this area. The nonsense meter runs in a similar fashion to like a taxi cab meter. When you get into a taxi cab, the meter starts running. And obviously, why am I telling you this? But in the same way here, if you stand still, the nonsense meter starts running. And if you stay in any place for too long, you will get friends. You will get people start coming around. At least I do. This is what happens to me. It doesn't happen to some people. It doesn't happen to my wife, but she recognizes it happens with me because she's, when she's around me. It's this guy across the street here. He noticed me, right? And he saw me out here. So he started hiding behind the car over there. So now he keeps popping his head out going, hey, hey. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about bored people. No one has anything to do. They're just really bored. So when they see you, they think, oh, now I got something to do. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this guy. And that's very much the nonsense meter. Like now he's going to come across the street and try to talk to me. Do I want to deal with this? Probably not. What I like to do is I like to make it wicked hard for them. Like when they start getting a tail, I'll make it so that they really have to work for it. Like I'll go in a different direction. I'll cross the street. I make them work for it, and then ultimately I lose them. Yeah, I'm not gonna stick around to see how this plays out. I know how it plays out. What are you doing? Grab a cigarette? They try to see what you got. Yeah, I don't have time for that. So I'm gonna probably go and limp inside and try to thought form my leg. It's worth a try. You know what I mean? It's like it does work. It does work. But when you try it on yourself, it seems to have, mixed results. Oh, it wasn't for me. I thought it was for me. Well, it could be for me. You never know. I fucking do attract it, like, big time. So I'll do is, like, I always pretend I'm in the middle of a conversation. I'll do that now. Yeah, so it's like, the whole thing is if, a body is only going to stay warm for so long. You got to get the organs out of it, like, right away. Or else, because if the person dies and you're not going to be able to get the organs out, it's not going to be any good. I like to do things like that. Oh, when I'm in an elevator, I'm getting crowded, and pretend I'm on the phone. Yeah, I know she's only 8 years old, but she's got to slow down on the smoking. I've been sharing the patch with her. Her mom's freaking out. All right, don't blame the teacher, blame the school.